Talk us through what this means for all the competitors out there to TikTok. If you're an investor looking to trade this, it is murky. You have the Supreme Court upholding this ban, and yet you have Donald Trump saying he may give the company a reprieve. What is an investor or trader to do now?
Well, MetaTrader at Deepwater, we own Meta, and as an owner of Meta, we're expecting that this ban is not going to be upheld. At the end of the day, this, even though despite what's happened with the Supreme Court, I think that writing is clearly on the wall. TikTok is going to remain. And the big change wasn't about the Supreme Court. It largely doesn't matter. What matters is the tone on the Democratic Party, and I think that that speaks to what is strong bipartisan support back in April, 82, 87%, the House and Senate support. Typically, a bill gets passed for around 55%, so this is unprecedented bipartisan support. That is now shifting, and I think that for an investor, from an investor standpoint, I think that one piece is just for Meta, that we're expecting kind of a 5 up to a 10% tailwind if they would have captured 50, 75% of that time spent on Instagram Reels. And so I think I'll start there, Mike, as I think that that's from an investor piece. There's another lesson here for investors that go well beyond what's happening with TikTok. And there's no other app in the world that I can imagine that could cause this kind of uprise. And the reason is it is the power of a strong product, an addictive product. And the power of I think, people, in this case, the power of that product influencing political decision. And so what does that mean for broader investing is that companies that have that leverage, and NVIDIA, for example, it's just really hard to displace.
Really interesting, considering the pressure NVIDIA is putting on the next set of potential laws coming its way to limit its selling abroad. Jean, this about face of lawmakers, this bipartisanship of against TikTok to now suddenly everyone wanting to see it continue. How does that materialize in the next few days? I know it's hard to discern, but Chuck Schumer, of course, minority leader in the Senate, saying we need to find a U.S. buyer. What does that mean for the addiction of the algorithm with a new owner?
Well, first of all, I don't think there will be a new owner. I think that ultimately what will happen is this is going to go back to some sort of House and Senate vote. And I think that it actually will, TikTok will be allowed to remain. I think that there's just that much political pressure. What we saw from Biden today was, I think, evidence of how strong that political pressure is. If I'm wrong and there's ultimately a sale, that algorithm effectively doesn't change. I think the question wasn't whether or not, from a logistics standpoint, whether the algorithm would change. It's where does that data ultimately go? And so I don't think that piece changes.
Jean, we saw that Donald Trump spoke today with Chinese President Xi Jinping, whose blessing would be needed ultimately for any sale of the app by ByteDance. Do you see any buyers emerging, perhaps including Elon Musk, whose name has been floated in Chinese circles?
So if I'm wrong, and this does go the route of a sale, Elon's a buyer. I think there can be other constituents. You could see groups, potentially telcos, involved with a sale. We've seen them start to venture into things like this. Of course, megacap, and maybe they've got some more room with a closer relationship that megacap has had with the Trump administration. So something along those lines. And so, I mean, something will come out. It's worth probably $50 to $100 billion, somewhere in that range, which for these companies is a very doable ticket. So again, I think that TikTok users should rest easy because they're going to get their product. They're going to get to continue their product, whether it's in the current form or just under some new leadership.